It's a showdown in the Show Me State.
Let's do it right now.
You down on Fox News?
Let's debate right now.
Can you say yes to Fox News?
Are you going to debate today?
Can you say yes to Fox
If
News?
you'll show up and debate today, we'll do a whole bunch more.
Can you say yes to Fox
If
News?
you show up and debate today, we'll do a whole bunch more.
You can't do it, man.
Right here.
Can't do it.
Right here.
Republican Senator Josh Hawley fighting to keep his seat.
He wants to be a senator and represent the people of the state. He can't be honest with the people of this state.
Democratic challenger Lucas Kunce trying to take it away.
The guy's a swamp creature. He only cares about himself, making money for himself.
The two face off tonight for their only televised debate, the issues that matter most to Missourians taking center stage.
Reproductive rights.
Yes. Economy, crime,
Women's rights.
Overall health.
With just days left to decide who will earn your trust and your vote November 5th. Live from your local election headquarters, the Fox 2 studio in St. Louis, it's debate night in Missouri, the race for U.S. Senate.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Fox 2 News anchor Shirley Washington.
And I'm Fox 4 News anchor out of Kansas City, John Holt. Great to be with you, Shirley, and with our candidates tonight. We are looking forward to a very exciting evening, debate night in Missouri. Tonight's debate can be seen all across the state of Missouri, in fact, on air and streaming online on our Nexstar stations and media partners all across the Show Me State. And we invite everyone to join the conversation on social media using the hashtag MO Senate Debate.
Now, before we get started, let's go over the rules. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer a direct question. Follow-up questions will be allotted 30 seconds for a response. And when time is up, you will hear this bell. Each candidate will also have 60 seconds for a closing statement.
We have a lot to get to tonight, gentlemen. Thanks for being with us. We're going to start with the economy, top of all the polls of what's important to people. And Shirley will have the first round.
John, thanks so much. Well, many Missourians depend on high-interest credit cards to get by. Mr. Hawley, you have called for an 18% cap on credit card interest rates. Former President Donald Trump has called for a 10% cap. Would you support a smaller cap despite potential impact on MasterCard and other financial institutions with Missouri ties? You have 90 seconds.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I want to start by saying hello to my wife and children who are watching at home. I sure do love you guys. Thank you to Nexstar for hosting this debate. Thank you to the reporters for being here. You know, it takes a little bit of courage to share a stage with Lucas Kunce after he shot a reporter last week. I guess he wants to go out with a bang. Now, as to the question about the economy, I'm so glad you asked that because I think it's something that's on so many people's minds. Let me just start with credit cards. Here's what I would do. I think that the rates that the credit card companies are charging are absolutely outrageous. I think they're extortionary, and I would cap them. I proposed 18%. President Trump has proposed lower. I would be happy to go lower because, listen, the bottom line is people need to be able to keep what they earn. And listen, these credit card companies and these banks, they are making profits hand over fist. They don't need to make 30 and 40% interest. That's what, in many cases, the average credit card interest rate is right now, nationwide, 30+%. I think it's absolutely outrageous. We have got to get those costs down. We've got to get wages up. We've got to reopen American energy production. What I would not do, however, is what my opponent has said he would do, which I have to say I just don't understand. He has a plan to get rid of all fossil fuels in the state of Missouri, to get rid of all American energy, no gas, no diesel, no biofuels. He endorsed it and wrote about it last time he ran for the Senate 2 years ago. I think that that would be just the opposite of what we need to do. That would raise the cost of electricity. One economist estimates by 100%. I can't think of anything worse for Missouri families.
Mr. Hawley, thank you for your response. Mr. Kunce, you have shared the story of your sister's medical bills that led to crippling credit card debt for your family. Do you support imposing an interest rate cap? And if so, how much? You have 90 seconds, sir.
That's true. You know, my family went bankrupt from medical bills when I was a kid, and I just want to say how happy I am to be here tonight. You know, for a normal guy like me who grew up in a working class neighborhood in mid-Missouri and whose family went bankrupt from something like that, it's really hard to make it in this world. You know, I spent my life as a U.S. Marine trying to pay everybody back in that old neighborhood because the way we made it through that time, It wasn't because the credit card companies were there for us. It wasn't because country club politicians like Josh Hawley were there for us. It's because the people in our old neighborhood who had no more money than we did. You know, they passed a plate down at my mom's prayer group for us. They brought by more food by the house than we could eat, and they really just took care of us. And so for me, that's why I'm running in this U.S. Senate race. It's to take care of the everyday people who took care of me. Absolutely, we need to cap credit card rates. But you know what? Half the people there can't get another credit card, and they have to turn to things like payday lenders. We need to cap payday lenders. We need to regulate them. We need to make sure that these predatory financial institutions can't come in and destroy people's lives over and over and over again, because you can see the result of that in my old community. Like, if you go back to this old neighborhood, sure, it was working class, but we all had enough money to take care of each other. You go back there now, Josh Hawley's war on working people shows in every single corner. The first house that I lived in there is now an empty lot. The house across the street became an empty lot, and it's only got something there because Habitat for Humanity came in and built something. The house I joined the Marine Corps out of, that everybody brought food by, is boarded up to keep the squatters out, and the store on the corner, where my little sister and I, when we were 6 and 8 years old, could walk by ourselves to go buy candy, has been shut down because it's been robbed so many times it can't get insurance anymore. It's because corrupt politicians from both parties have taken money from the wrong people over and over and over again. I take no money from corporate PACs, no money from federal lobbyists, no money from big pharma executives, because the only people I will ever owe are the folks in that old neighborhood who took care of me and my family.
Thank you so much for your response. I have a follow-up question for each of you. Again, starting with you, Mr. Hawley. Financial experts fear lower interest rates would lead to more credit card applications and more people being denied credit. Mr. Hawley, what do you say to Missourians who rely on credit cards to make ends meet? You have 30 seconds.
Well, listen, I would just say this. I think it's absolutely outrageous that folks who are relying on credit cards, and in this economy, in Kamala's economy, more and more people are doing that. They're putting their food on credit cards. They're putting their gas on credit cards because they can't afford it. Gas prices are up 70% in many cases. This is why I think we need to cap credit card interest rates. I don't buy the idea that the credit card companies that will then write off a bunch of people, they want the profit, they want the market. What I would not do is what my opponent's plan would do. The last time he ran for the U.S. Senate, he said that he would get rid of all fossil fuels. That would drive the cost of energy up by 100%. We can't afford that.
Thank you, Mr. Hawley, for your response. Mr. Kunce, families facing similar financial hardship as yours did could be denied credit if rates are reduced drastically. What do you say to Missourians who rely on credit cards to make ends meet? You have 30 seconds.
These predatory financial institutions are not going to give up on their cash cow. They're going to keep going after it. They're going to find other ways. Look, this economy has been hard on all of us. We have all struggled. Well, everyone except Josh Hawley. Josh Hawley's flying around in a private jet all over our state because he treats us like flyover country. You know, he's got fancy haircuts. He hangs out with the most fancy federal lobbyists, and he doesn't take care of us. He doesn't bring money back home. You want to help out Missourians? How about bringing home the $300 million a year that Roy Blunt brought home every year? Josh Hawley, every year is zero. That's money for working families that we just don't have.
Mr. Kunce, thank you so much for your response. We appreciate it. John?
Boy, both of you have certainly made the news recently for different things, so we're going to touch on each of these items separately. We'll start with you, Mr. Kunce. At your October 22nd gun range event north of Kansas City, which the senator alluded to, a reporter was struck in the arm by shrapnel. Thankfully, he's okay, and the case is closed. No prosecution plan, but a lot of experts had questions based on media photos of the safety of the gun range, the private gun range that was being used at that time. So here's my question. Do these concerns contradict the image you've portrayed as a trained military veteran and also a gun advocate and gun owner? You have 90 seconds.
Absolutely not. You know, I think Josh Hawley's take on this whole situation tells you everything you need to know about this guy. Some union folks up north of Kansas City invited me up there to go to a shooting range that they've all done training on, had multiple trainings on. It was run by an NRA certified training counselor. They wanted to do this range. I went up there. We followed the guy's directions. We did what he said, and unfortunately, a reporter was hurt by a piece of shrapnel. It was a minor injury. You know, I'm glad Ryan was okay. We bandaged him up and we went on. And so it's crazy to see this guy over here clutching his pearls so hard over this, considering the fact that he's completely cool with inciting a riot that led to the injuries of 174 police officers, God knows how many other civilians, and even led to several deaths. You know, the big difference between Josh Hawley and I is when I was at this event and I saw Ryan get hurt, I immediately went over to him, I stopped what I was doing, I took out the medical kit, I put a bandage on him, he was able to keep reporting. Josh Hawley when literally hundreds of people were being hurt at his place of work, did the exact opposite thing, right? As a Marine, we go towards danger. We help people out when they're hurt. Josh Hawley, as the selfish swamp creature that he is and has always been, he ran away as quick as he could back to his $2 million Virginia estate and hid his head and hasn't said a single thing first. The man is literally all about himself. The people in this election have a real choice. A U.S. Marine who spent his entire life trying to pay back the people in my old neighborhood who took care of me, or a selfish guy over here who makes $500,000 in book sales, tripling his Senate salary, and brings nothing home to Missouri because he only cares about himself.
Mr. Kunce, thank you. Mr. Hawley, in your case, and your opponent alluded to it, in 2018, when you were campaigning against then-Senator Claire McCaskill, you called her out for using private aircraft to fly around the state. Fast forward to 2024, and our review of Federal Election Commission documents reveals your campaign has spent more than $194,000 to do the exact same thing, essentially. Your critics, your opponent, have called you a hypocrite for that 6 years later. What say you? You have 90 seconds.
Thank you so much. Well, here's what I would say. I will use planes, trains, and automobiles to travel the state of Missouri, to see my constituents and to do my job and to reach every single corner of the state. And I tell you something else, all of those things have something in common. They all use fossil fuels. And if my opponent has his way with his plan, none of us will be able to use fossil fuels. I'm talking about oil, I'm talking about diesel, I'm talking about natural gas, I'm talking about coal. Listen, when my opponent ran for the Senate last time, and I say last time because he's run for office for 20 years now, 4 different offices or 5, I lose track, and when he ran for the Senate 2 years ago, his plan, which we'll post online right now, by the way, Kunce Misfire is the Twitter handle. You can find all of this there all night. His plan called for eliminating American energy. Where would we buy it instead? From China. What would that do to our electricity bills? Economists estimate it would increase them by 100%. I just think that that's off target for Missouri. I think it's totally crazy.
Mr. Hawley, just with all due respect, you didn't answer my question. The critics have called you hypocritical for calling out Claire McCaskill 6 years ago, and now you're flying around in a jet as well as part of your campaign. What say you about those allegations?
Well, if I did remember,
15 seconds.
If I remember correctly, my opponent 6 years ago lied about what she was doing. She said she was in an RV when in fact she was flying in a private plane. I tell you, you may not always agree with me, but I'll always tell you the truth, and you will always know where I stand. I wish I could say the same thing for my opponent. Like, for example, who's he voting for president this year?
Thank you. Shirley?
All right. Recent polls indicate
Are we doing
Amendment
rebuttals?
3.
Do we ask for those or?
No.
Okay.
We're moving on. Thank you.
Recent polls indicate Amendment 3, which would lift the statewide ban on abortion, is expected to pass. Mr. Hawley, if that happens, will you bring back your 2022 bill, which bans abortion nationally at 15 weeks, or support similar legislation? You have 90 seconds.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm glad you raised this issue because I know that this is on the minds of so many people around the state. And I want to just say a word first about Amendment 3. I want to level with everybody on this. I'm not going to vote for Amendment 3, and the reason is this. I mean, first of all, I'm pro-life. I believe in exceptions for rape, for incest, and for the life of the mother. I do think that those decisions ought to be made by voters at the state level in most cases. But listen, Amendment 3 goes far beyond what I just said. Amendment 3 goes far beyond abortion. Read the language carefully. It never mentions the word woman. It says it is not limited to abortion. It says it is not limited to fertility. In fact, it says it encompasses all reproductive health services. I want to be clear about this. Amendment 3 would legalize sex change operations and transgender treatment for minors in the state of Missouri without parental consent. I simply cannot support that. So I'm going to vote no on Amendment 3. Now, I know my opponent is for Amendment 3. He is for sex change operations for minors. He's for men and women's sports and men and women's bathrooms. I just think that that is wrong for the state of Missouri. As to at the congressional level, what I would support is reasonable restrictions, like restrictions on partial birth abortion, restrictions on when the baby is able to feel pain. Beyond that, I think that the state voters ought to decide, which is what we're doing in Missouri. But I say again, I cannot support my opponent's position, which would legalize sex change operations for minors in Missouri without parental consent. I just think that's off target for our state.
Mr. Hawley, seeking clarification, the question is, will you bring back your 2022 bill, which bans abortion nationally at 15 weeks, or will you support similar legislation? That's the question, sir.
And what I stand by my answer, which is that I do not believe in a national abortion ban. I do support reasonable restrictions at the federal level, including restrictions on partial birth abortion and when the baby is capable of feeling pain, which is the legislation that you were just referring to. But I want to emphasize, I am not going to support legislation that will legalize sex change operations for minors and change our law in Missouri. I can't do that.
Mr. Hawley, thank you for your response. Mr. Kunce, there is a patchwork of abortion amendment laws across the country. If elected, would you support a national standard for all states so women have equal access to reproductive care? You have 90 seconds.
Right now in Missouri, if you get raped, you have to carry that rapist child. Plain and simple, that's it. There is no exception. When that law came into effect, Josh Hawley said, and I quote, "Thank God," and he celebrated it. That is his true position on this thing outside of an election year. And it's even worse than that. The man has written articles where he says that the morning after pill and any type of contraception that prevent the implantation of a fertilized egg is the exact same thing as abortion, which of course he has called murder on the Senate floor. And that's not all. He wants to control us in literally every single aspect of our lives. He has said that we need to reconsider the wisdom of no-fault divorces because I guess he's tired of women getting out of unsafe marriages and abusive marriages. That is where this guy is on every single one of these issues. He wants to override the will of Missouri voters and voters in every other state by, as you put it, he has already co-sponsored a national abortion ban. He has co-sponsored a national abortion ban because he thinks it's his job to decide how all of us get to live. I think Missourians are smart enough to make their own decisions without politicians like Josh Hawley coming in and telling us how to live. I will codify Roe versus Wade at the national level because I believe that Missourians have the right to do that. As for all this him seeing sex change surgeries around every single quarter, it's ridiculous. The Missouri courts have looked at this and said that that's not true. You want a guy who can't shoot straight, it's this man right here. He will literally lie, cheat, steal, do anything he can to confirm his life's ambition, which is to make sure that there is no abortion, no contraception, or anything else. Women have to step aside, as he and Harrison Butker put it.
Mr. Kunce, thank you for your response. Mr. Hawley, you have 30 seconds to respond.
Well, there's a lot of scattershot there. Let me just say this, that at the end of the day, I think it's absolutely vital that we protect our women and children in this state. And that's why I cannot support legislation that would allow sex change operations for minors without parental consent. Now, my opponent has supported it. It's not just recently. He supported it for years. He supported men in women's locker rooms and men in women's sports. When he ran for the Senate last time, he endorsed both of those measures, and he endorsed the Democrats' national legislation earlier this year that would have imposed sex change operations for minors in Missouri.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kunce, you have 30 seconds to respond, sir.
Yeah, I've never endorsed any of those things. I've never supported them. Look, the guy, like I said, he sees sex change surgeries around every corner because that's his excuse to vote against a no-exceptions abortion ban that would make someone carry a rapist child. That is his core belief. He's built a family business around it. He has an entire lifetime legacy of working toward that. He's not going to give it up. He will stand here and he will lie to make sure he can make that happen. He said on the Senate floor that he thinks he's the same as the abolitionists fighting against slavery on this movement. He will literally do and say anything to convince people otherwise.
Thank you both for your response. We're going to turn now to foreign policy. John?
And let's start in the Middle East, gentlemen. After Israel's recent airstrike in Iran, Iranian military leaders are promising, and I quote, bitter and unimaginable consequences. The U.S. has long supported Israel diplomatically and with resources, clearly the strongest ally we have in that region. But given the rising tensions, is there a tipping point with which you could support boots on the ground, combat troops from America to protect Israel? We'll start with you, Mr. Kunce. You have 90 seconds.
As the only person up here who has been boots on the ground, you know, I led a police training team in Iraq. I had 12 Marines and a Navy corpsman, and my job was to run, plan, lead all of our missions, dozens of them outside the wire, and bring everybody home safe, which thank God we did. I deployed to Afghanistan twice, and unfortunately not everyone came home from those deployments, and I would just say the red line should be boots on the ground. We should never put boots on the ground in the Middle East ever again, and the troops that we have there right now should come home. We have wasted 20 years and $7 trillion over there when neighborhoods like the one I grew up in are falling apart. We are putting ourselves into a quagmire. The war in 2003 was for oil, something that we should never be fighting for. And you know, the most disappointing thing about this is that when Josh Hawley had the ability to undo this, to vote against extending the 2001 authorization for the use of military force, he didn't do it. He has made it so that we can be in forever wars, literally forever. And I think that's wrong. I think he doesn't get it because he doesn't understand the military. He doesn't understand what it's like to deploy, and we should never have boots on the ground there. I will say this, though. As far as October 7th is concerned, I think what happened was an absolute tragedy. I think Israel had a right to defend themselves, which you have seen. And I think what you've seen since then, though, with tens of thousands of civilians dying, is exactly what we learned in Iraq and Afghanistan. You know, it doesn't work. You can't just kill everybody. The Taliban still runs Afghanistan. Iraq still has ISIS running all over it. What we need to do is get to a negotiated ceasefire. That includes the return of the hostages, and we need to do that quickly.
Mr. Kunce, thank you. Mr. Hawley, same question, essentially. Is there a red line or a tipping point that would allow you to support boots on the ground combat troops from the U.S. in Israel? 90 seconds.
No, I would not support boots on the ground, and our ally Israel is not asking for that. It's the same reason that I haven't supported our policy in Ukraine, where we have spent $200 billion to date, and the tab continues to run. And I think military assistance there in terms of actual boots on the ground is a very real possibility. This is another area where my opponent and I have a difference. My opponent has said very clearly that he supports what we're doing in Ukraine. He supports the aid to Ukraine. He supports all the spending in Ukraine. I just think that that's a misfire, if you will, for this state, for this country, when our own border isn't secure, when we have 15 million illegal immigrants flooding into our country, and here we are spending hundreds of billions of dollars. That's why I voted no on Ukraine funding over and over. My opponent sees it differently. Now, let me just raise one other issue since we're talking about Israel. And that is, I don't think there should be a ceasefire until Israel has been able to secure its own borders and secure the safety of its people. And I would just note that my opponent, inexplicably to me, just a few weeks ago, compared the Israeli government to the terrorist Hamas. He said that they're morally equivalent. He said it right here in Missouri on a public radio show. I just think that that's wrong. I think it's totally wrong. I disagree with it. I think we need to say now with moral clarity that our ally Israel needs our support as they take on these terrorists and their borders. And we need to be clear that there's no moral equivalence between Hamas and the people of Israel.
Mr. Hawley, thank you. Since you raised Ukraine, I want to give you, Mr. Kunce, 15 seconds to explain your position on Ukraine.
Well, sure. I have never equated the Israel government to Hamas. That's a complete falsification of everything that I've ever stood for. As for Ukraine, it will take more than 15 seconds to answer this. Do you want to ask another question on it? I mean, here's the deal. What I'm talking about is spending money in Ukraine. That $200 billion is keeping us from having boots on the ground. I have done arms control negotiations with NATO and Russia over there, for the Pentagon, for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Russia is a bad, aggressive actor. They've been building up their military for a long time, and they want to expand. Us supplying arms there is keeping us from having to have boots on the ground in a war with NATO. And if you want to see something that's going to cost a lot more than $200 billion, more than any of us can afford, it's a war where we have to put boots on the ground with Russia.
Thank you, Mr. Kunce. We're moving on to party politics.
Mr. Hawley, we want to start with you. In 2020, you were the first to object to the certification of the election results. Later, in a podcast, your former mentor, former Republican U.S. Senator John Danforth said he believes, quote, you set the stage for the January 6th insurrection. Do you feel any responsibility for the violence that unfolded? You have 90 seconds.
Thank you very much. You know, what I feel responsibility for is defending our Constitution, which is what I was doing on that day. Listen, my view is this: one person, one vote. Every vote ought to count equally, and I believe firmly in election integrity. And what we saw 4 years ago was one state in particular, the state of Pennsylvania, to which I objected, not follow the rules of our Constitution. Ballots were returned after they had been already counted. Votes were cast after the election was finished. Pennsylvania changed its voting procedures in the middle of the election. The Supreme Court, our Supreme Court, has been very clear that those are due process violations. And my view is we should stand up and object to that. So that's what I did. But listen, I know that not everybody agrees with me. I'll just say this. You'll always know where I stand. When I take a position, I stand by it. When I'm criticized for it, I stand by it. Now, my opponent has criticized me very sharply, and President Trump, for everything involving the election integrity stand those years ago. He's called me an enemy of the people. He's called President Trump an enemy of the people and criminals. But now I notice my opponent also is running millions of dollars in advertisements that feature President Trump and seem to suggest he might vote for him. And so I just think it's a fair question to ask, is Lucas Kunce voting for Donald Trump after calling him an enemy of the people, or is he voting for Kamala Harris? I think an important part of service to our state is leveling with the people of our state.
Mr. Hawley, speaking of Kamala Harris, if Kamala Harris wins the election 5 days from now, will you vote to certify the results? You have 30 seconds.
Yeah, certainly I will, so long as the Constitution's followed. Listen, what happened 4 years ago is something I have to say I've never seen happen in American life before, to have a state that actually changes the rules of voting during and even after the election. As I say, I believe that's a due process clause violation, and I had to cast a vote on it. So I will always defend the Constitution of the United States, but you'll always know where you stand. I mean, listen, I'll be honest with you. When I take a position, I stick to it. If you criticize me for it, I'll stick to it. I don't know that my opponent can say the same, and I think he owes us an explanation now of who he's voting for in this election.
Mr. Hawley, your time is up, sir. Thank you so much. Mr. Kunce, you have 30 seconds for rebuttal.
Josh Hawley incited a riot. It led to 174 police officers being injured, led to countless civilian injuries and several deaths. He's spinning up here, clutching his pearls about a shooting range incident, and he can't take accountability for that. When he says you can always know where he stands and that he doesn't change his position, fine. Let's believe him on that on abortion. Let's believe him on that on contraception when he said that he believes contraception is the same thing as abortion. And he has literally taken that vote. He has voted not to protect contraception in the United States Senate on the Senate floor.
Thank you, Mr. Kunce. I have a question for you now. You are the Democratic nominee from Missouri for U.S. Senate. Despite repeated attempts by reporters and your opponent, Josh Hawley, you have not publicly shown support for the Democratic nominee for president. Will you tell voters who you are voting for November 5th? You have 90 seconds.
I didn't get into this race to decide who the president was going to be. I want to make sure that when I'm in the U.S. Senate, I can work with any president from any party to secure the border, to invest in Missouri, and to bring money back home. Plain and simple, that's what I want to do. I have enough problems, going around this state trying to meet everybody here and introduce myself to them, tell them about my background, tell them how I grew up here, my family going bankrupt from medical bills, and the way I've served them in my entire life in the United States Marine Corps. My entire job that I see as a U.S. Senator is to bring money back to this state and protect the people in this state. I take after Roy Blunt on that. Our former Senator Roy Blunt, Republican, he brought more than $300 million a year back to the state every single year. Josh Hawley brings back $0 every single year. He has plenty of time to write self-help books about manhood. Look it up on Amazon. He wrote a book called Manhood, The Masculine Virtues America Needs, where he tells everybody that to be more like a better man, you just need to be more like him, right? He's got time to do that, but he doesn't have time to bring a single dollar back to this state. He doesn't have time to come here. He comes here, a recent report said, maybe 6 times a year. And when he does, he jets around in a Gulfstream 4 and doesn't get down and meet people, doesn't get down and see what the problems are. Again, this entire race for me is about this state I've spent my life honoring, serving, and protecting in the United States Marine Corps. I will bring that money back. I will do everything I can to work with any president from any party or any member of Congress from any party to bring money back home, invest in this state, and make life better for the people in my old neighborhood who took care of my family when we went bankrupt from medical bills.
So, Mr. Kunce, are you telling voters tonight that you will not support Kamala Harris, the proposed head of the Democratic Party, your party? You have 30 seconds.
I'm telling you that I am not going to decide for other people who they're voting for. I'm not going to make this a national election. Josh Hawley wants this to be about national politics because he knows he's deeply unpopular here. He knows he never comes here. He knows he doesn't bring any money here, right? Again, that's not what it's about for me. It's not about choosing the president. It's about making sure that I can work with any president of any party to invest in the state and take care of the people here.
So to clarify, does that mean there is a possibility you could vote for Donald Trump on Election Day? You have 15 seconds.
Well, I don't think there's any more clarification other than saying that this race is not about national politics for me. I'm not going to address the national side of that because this race for me is all about Josh Hawley, his neglect for this state, and what I'm going to do to make life better for the people here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kunce. Mr. Hawley, you have 30 seconds for rebuttal.
Well, listen, it sounds awfully politician-y, doesn't it? I mean, Lucas Kunce has run for office for 20 years, 4 or 5 different offices. And I have to say that this is a pattern. Back in 2020, when he was running for a different office, he wouldn't say who he was going to support for president then either. In 2023, he wouldn't say whether or not he wanted Joe Biden to run for re-election. Now he won't tell Missouri who he's voting for. Listen, I'll just say this again. You may not agree with me on every position that I take, but when I take a position, I'll be honest with you about it, and I will stick to it. And I just think that part of service is being willing to take a stand, hold to it under fire, and explain yourself.
Thank you for your answer. We're going to move on now to the border crisis, John.
Immigration, another issue that's at the top of many voters' lists if you look at the polls. Mr. Hawley, you voted against two border funding bills, 2019 and then another one this year. One bill allowed 1.5 million migrants into the U.S. each year, but would also fund an additional 1,500 agents and officers at the border to protect that border. And what do you say to voters who will say, you know what, let's do something rather than do nothing? How do you respond to that? You have 90 seconds.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Listen, I want to talk about this bill that I voted against and that my opponent is very much for. Let me explain the details. This bill would have allowed 5,000 illegal immigrants to cross the border every single day. This bill would have forced taxpayer funding for lawyers for illegals. There's no way I'm going to vote for that. That would have made the crisis so much worse. What we need to do is close the border. What we need to do is reinstate the Remain in Mexico program. What we need to do is allow ICE to deport illegal immigrants who are criminals in this country, including, I'm sad to say, many who've committed crimes here in the state of Missouri. Now, my opponent and I just have a difference on this. My opponent was for that bill I just described. Last time he ran for the Senate, that was 2 years ago, he said he was for amnesty. He said that he was for no border wall. He also has said that he wants to give illegals Social Security and Medicare once he gives them amnesty. I can't tell you how wrong I think all of that is. I think it's totally off target for the state of Missouri. And I'm certainly not going to support legislation that would open up our border. What we need to do is what I said, close the border, reinstitute Remain in Mexico, put President Trump's policies back in place.
Mr. Hawley, thank you. Mr. Kunce, similar topic, different approach here. You say you'll work with whomever is elected president on securing the border. If that's true, does that mean you would support President Trump's position on mass deportation of migrants who have crossed the border illegally? You have 90 seconds.
Sure, I'd just like to address something first. Josh Hawley claims that I've been running for Senate for 20 years, or whatever he's claiming. You know, I was in active duty Marine Corps for 13 years. I've been in the reserves for another 3. And during that time, I actually went to the border. I've trained at the border as a U.S. Marine. You know, I mentioned earlier that I deployed to Iraq, where I led a police training team. Before I led that police training team, I was scheduled to lead a border team. And so I went down to the southern border in Arizona. I trained with the Border Patrol there. I was certified by the Border Patrol Tactical Unit. Like, I know what's going on there. I have seen it. I haven't just done a field trip like this guy. And I can tell you right now, there's some very simple things that we have to do immediately. We have to stop the flow of fentanyl. We have to end this disastrous catch and release program that we have in place. And we need to fully fund and equip Border Patrol. Josh Hawley has voted against every single one of those things over and over and over again. I mentioned Roy Blunt earlier. When Roy Blunt negotiated a border bill that Donald Trump signed into law, Josh Hawley voted against it. Fentanyl, the #1 killer of Missourians 44 and under, there was a bill to fund fentanyl scanners at the border. Josh Hawley voted against that. He doesn't care about keeping us safe. When the guys that I trained with at the border endorsed the most recent bill because it was going to fully fund and equip Border Patrol, Josh Hawley voted against that too. He doesn't care about keeping us safe. In fact, his reason for voting against these things was that he didn't think it was his job. It was the president's job. I know that's not the case. I am going to work, like I said, with any president to do those 3 things that I just said that will secure the border.
I appreciate the discussion you just had and what you do support, but my question was, would you support, if President Trump is elected, mass deportation? 30 seconds, please.
The money that would cost is unbelievable. I think that what we need to do first is we need to secure the border, and then we can see about other things. And securing the border includes what I just talked about: stopping the flow of fentanyl, ending the Biden administration's terrible catch and release program, and fully funding and equipping the Border Patrol. Like, that's it. Those are very simple, straightforward solutions that I should be able to work with any president on. Again, Josh Hawley Said it just wasn't his job. He said, oh, that's the president's job. That's not true. I don't think a member of Congress should ever abdicate their job to keep the people in the state safe. But he did that because he wanted to keep it as a campaign issue.
Thank you, Mr. Hawley. I want to shift gears here a bit and ask you, as a member of the Senate Foreign Policy Leadership on the Hill, how do you get Mexico involved in this, in securing the border? What do you do to lean on that country to help?
Yeah, terrific question. And this is where President Trump had tremendous success just a few years ago, before Kamala Harris and Joe Biden repealed all of his policies. He had gotten Mexico to agree to what's called the Remain in Mexico policy. Here's the gist of it. If you want to apply for asylum in the United States, you can do that. But first, you have to wait in Mexico until your asylum claims are adjudicated. I think that's exactly right. Now, my opponent, once again, when he ran for Senate just 2 years ago, he said that he was against a border wall. We'll put this all up on social media right now. Look for yourself. He's for amnesty. He has sharply criticized President Trump's policies. I just think his position's off target.
Mr. Kunce, if you find your way into the Senate and part of foreign policy leadership, how do you convince Mexico to help secure the border?
Well, I have supported the Remain in Mexico policy. I think that it's fine. I think you go through a lot of countries to get to the United States, and I don't think that you should automatically be granted entry just because you apply for asylum. So I'm not against that. Like, this is where Josh Hawley makes up things about me over and over and over again, right? Because he knows that we're gaining ground. He knows that he hasn't delivered for this state, and he's trying to distract, and he's trying to make things up. You know, he's got a super PAC spending millions of ads, funded by a bunch of zillionaires against me. He's only run negative ads against me, nothing about his own record, because he hasn't accomplished anything, and that includes failing to secure the border.
Let's come back to the economy and talk specifically about Social Security. Mr. Kunce, we'll start with you here. According to the Congressional Budget Office, Social Security will essentially be insolvent by the year 2034. How would you make Social Security sustainable and yet not add to the nearly $36 trillion United States debt that we have right now? 90 seconds.
This is where Josh Hawley and I feel very, very differently. You know, he said in an AARP study, or an AARP survey, that he believes we should raise the age limit on Social Security and that we should reduce the benefit. I don't agree with that. What I think we should do is we should raise the cap on Social Security taxes so that everybody, no matter how much you're paying, pays the exact same amount into Social Security tax. That'll get us a lot of years, and it's exactly what we want to do. And the reason I take that position is because of the neighborhood that I grew up in. I grew up in a working class neighborhood in this state. And again, my family went bankrupt from medical bills there, and the people there on Social Security were many of the ones who made food for us and brought it by our house. He wants to take away their ability to do that. He has waged war on working people his entire career. I mean, let's look at what he did as our Attorney General, right? In the 3 hot seconds, he was our Attorney General before running for Senate, which Mr. Straight Shooter over here said he wasn't going to do, but did anyway. When he was our Attorney General, he led a lawsuit that took away overtime pay for more than 200,000 Missourians. He also got rid of the division of that office that kept us safe from the massive corporations that funded his campaign. Now, on Social Security, he's going to pretend to care about it because 5 out of every 6 years he doesn't, but when election year comes around, he does care about it. But those other years, he wants to hand the keys over to Goldman Sachs. He wants to privatize it. He wants to make Rick Scott the architect of destroying Social Security, the Senate Majority Leader, which is exactly what's going to happen if Josh Hawley wins this race and Rick Scott becomes our Senate Majority Leader. He refuses to protect anyone who didn't grow up like him.
Mr. Kunce, thank you. Mr. Hawley, how do you make Social Security sustainable by 2034?
Okay, well, there's a lot of
90 seconds.
Thank you. There's a lot of tall tales being told tonight, I guess appropriately for Halloween. Let's see if we can separate a little fact from fiction. First of all, here's what I would start by never doing. I would never give Social Security to illegal immigrants. I would never give 15, 20 million illegal immigrants in this country amnesty, which my opponent, sadly, has said over and over that he supports. And I wouldn't give Medicare to illegal immigrants either. To protect our Social Security program, we've got to make sure that the people who paid into it actually keep everything they paid in. And by the way, that's why I oppose, and always have, raising the retirement age or any cuts to any benefits of any kind for Social Security. Now, if you want to know how to save Social Security, the answer is start cutting things like the 87,000 IRS agents that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have spent billions of dollars on, and by the way, which my opponent supports. But more than anything else, we have got to make sure that Social Security is there for every American worker who paid into it. And we can start by ensuring illegal immigrants never get it and we never, ever, ever give them amnesty.
Thank you both. We're going to stay with the economy, only talk about green energy. Shirley.
All right, John, thanks so much. Mr. Hawley, you are trying to block a green energy deal that would take Missouri farmers' land through eminent domain for a power corridor that cuts across the state. However, it would create 1,500 construction jobs and result in about $6 billion in energy savings over 15 years. What do you say to the people who would benefit from this? You have 60 seconds.
Well, sadly, I think the people who would benefit from it are the corporations who are making all of the money. We're talking about the Grain Belt Express. Here's what you need to know. These corporations want to use Missouri as their ground to rake cash out of all of our farmers. They want to take farms using eminent domain. You're absolutely right. I have opposed this. I think it is vital we protect our farmers' land, that we protect family farmers' ability to exist. Agriculture is our #1 industry, and I will always support it. And yes, I am a critic of the Green New Deal in general. I know my opponent and I differ on this. My opponent has a plan that he wrote himself. You can read it, the American Prospect Magazine, 2021, where he says he wants to eliminate all fossil fuels. That is oil, diesel, gas, and the biofuels that we blend right here in the state of Missouri. He also says in that same plan he wants to force a transition to electric vehicles. I just think that this is totally wrong, totally off target for the state of Missouri. And yes, I oppose it, and yes, I will fight to defend our family farms.
Thank you so much for your response. Mr. Kunce, you are a proponent of renewable energy. What do you say to the farmers whose land will be taken to create a green energy corridor, and to neighbors who have windmills and solar panels placed in their communities? You have 60 seconds.
What I am a proponent of is putting America first in the international energy sphere. You know, currently, our energy is run by a Saudi cartel manipulated by the multinational corporations who fund Josh Hawley's campaigns. They own us at the gas pump. We are at their bidding. We are at their mercy. And what I see coming right now is that the United States is not making the investments in the next generation of energy and manufacturing, and China is. And what we're going to end up happening if we don't do something, if we don't invest in this next generation of energy and manufacturing, and do it right here in the Midwest, our Saudi cartel is going to be replaced with a cartel led by China. And America will never, ever be the same because we will be on our knees for Chinese energy. I never, ever want that to happen. I agree with President Trump that America needs to be first in energy, and that this is a path that we can invest in, we can defeat them, we can make sure that we're in control of that and are never at their knees. Josh Hawley doesn't care. Josh Hawley is owned by multinational energy corporations. I've never taken a single dime from a fossil fuel executive. I just don't do it. Same as Big Pharma. I don't take money from them because I don't want to stand up here and sacrifice America's future for corporate profits like he does.
Thank you so much, but I'm curious about your thoughts regarding eminent domains and taking farmers' land. 30 seconds.
I think we need to find a path that's fair for everybody. So, you know, whether that's working around that, going around it, giving them enough restitution that it makes it worth it, or finding another path. I think we need to do that. But I think that what we really, truly need to do, again, and he conflates this issue, what we need to do is make sure that 50 years from now, we are not relying on a Saudi cartel or a Chinese-led cartel, that we have our own energy production. We are first in the world, and they have to come to us for their energy needs.
Mr. Hawley, I'll give you 30 seconds to respond.
Thank you so much. I would just say that the way that you safeguard American energy production is to open up American energy production and not shut it down. My opponent wants to shut down all American energy production.
I have never said to shut down anything.
Oil and natural gas, fossil fuels, coal, and the biofuels that we blend right here in the state of Missouri. I think that that is exactly the wrong direction. Now, I know that's what Kamala Harris has also proposed, and Joe Biden, as we speak, is using your tax money to fund Chinese manufacturers, which my opponent has also said he's in favor of. He criticized me for voting against it. I think all of that's crazy. We need to open up American energy.
Thank you so much. Mr. Kunce, I'm going to give you 15 seconds to respond, and then we're going to move on to gun violence.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely not true. What I have suggested is that 50 to 70 years from now, we need to be past the current generation of energy and on to the next one. And if we don't do that, because these multinational corporations have bought off too many of our politicians, we will literally never catch up, and we will be beholden to China forever. Josh Hawley doesn't care about that because he only cares about his own selfish interests, taking care of himself and the people who fuel his Gulfstream 4 as he flies around this state.
Thank you, Mr. Kunce. John?
Let's talk about gun violence, and certainly Missouri has not been without it over the past couple of years. The Central Visual and Performing Arts School mass shooting here in St. Louis. Of course, the Kansas City Chiefs football parade and rally following the Super Bowl. Mr. Kunce, we'll start with you. You supported a 2022 law that encouraged red flag laws and also expanded background checks. But interestingly, you said it didn't go far enough. So my question, sir, is how much farther would you go, and how do you balance Second Amendment rights in doing so? You'll have 90 seconds.
Well, I'm a big supporter of the Second Amendment. You know, I grew up in this state. I grew up in rural Missouri. I've been shooting firearms since I was a kid. You know, I was a Boy Scout, becoming an Eagle Scout. Our Scoutmaster showed us pretty much every weapon system imaginable. And then I spent 13 years carrying firearms in Iraq, in Afghanistan again. And so for me, I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment, which is why a bunch of union guys invited me north of Kansas City to have an event at a shooting range there. So what I will say is this, though. You know, I was recently at a gun range down in my home county, at a gun show down in Cole County, and I was talking to some of the vendors there, and one of their biggest frustrations is that if you're a vendor at a gun show and you're doing the right thing, then you have to do, you know, real background checks on every single one of your weapon sales to make sure that they don't go into the hands of the wrong people. But if you've ever been to a gun show, there are always a bunch of people outside in the parking lot selling weapons with no checks, no anything, no sort of even decision-making on who they go to, and it's just really not fair to the small businesses who we should be trusting to do this sort of thing. So for me, I think we should have real checks on all gun sales. I think we need to have an age limit or some sort of training that goes along with kids getting weapons. I mean, as a Marine, I know you don't just give an 18-year-old, you know, a firearm and a bunch of ammunition. You teach them the weapon safety rules, you teach them how to shoot, you make sure they're responsible. We screen everyone when they come in just to make sure that they're okay. And, you know, I think we need that, and then I think we need the real red flag protections. And right now, we don't have quite a few of those things.
Mr. Hawley, how do you balance the Second Amendment with public safety as it relates to guns and gun violence? You have 90 seconds.
Well, I think that the most important thing that we can do when it comes to gun violence is put those who commit it behind bars and put those who attempt to commit it behind bars. That's why I've introduced legislation that would increase the sentences for those who commit gun violence, increase the sentences for those who attempt to commit gun violence. And I'll just say that I think that this experiment that Kamala Harris and the Biden administration have run on soft on crime has been an absolute disaster. The way to keep people safe is not to take away guns from law-abiding citizens, which is what my opponent has proposed. I mean, my opponent has said that he is for increasing the age to buy a rifle here in the state of Missouri, for increased gun control regulation in Missouri. I will say that his incident last week maybe convinced me that gun control might be needed for him. But for other law-abiding citizens in this state, that's not how you keep people safe. How you keep people safe is you go after the criminals and you penalize like crazy those who come after our kids or attempt to do so, those who buy illegal guns, the illegal gun market. We should crack down on all of that, and we can do it if we have the political will. But what I will not support is this soft on crime agenda that has gotten us to where we are.
Thank you both. Let's move now to social media. Shirley.
Thank you, John. Well, the U.S. Surgeon General says the mental health crisis among young people is an emergency, and social media has emerged as an important contributor. Mr. Hawley, as senator, you have been an advocate for holding social media companies accountable for protecting children online. Can you point to one thing you have done that parents can recognize to protect their children online? You have 90 seconds.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I would look at my legislation, my bipartisan legislation with Senator Dick Durbin from Illinois, where we were able to get through unanimously, the Judiciary Committee, unanimously, legislation that allows parents whose children are exploited by big tech to sue the big tech companies, and in particular, child sex abuse material, child porn that is directed at these children. It would allow parents and victims to sue the companies. These companies make more money than anybody on the face of the earth. They're the biggest corporations in the world, and yet they cannot be sued because of United States law. It protects them, including the porn companies. Our legislation would allow parents and victims to sue these companies if and when your child is harmed, if and when your child is exposed to exploitative material. I think it's absolutely vital. I think we should do other things. I think we should set an age limit under which these corporations can't come after our kids, advertise to our kids. But let's start by allowing parents and victims to sue these companies and hold them accountable in court. Now, I'll just say that here again, I think my opponent and I have a difference. I mean, my opponent has defended these companies, in particular, inexplicably to me, the porn companies, and has opposed my efforts and our legislation to allow parents and victims to go after them. I think we need to be putting more tools in the hands of parents and victims not defending these companies that, frankly, are terrorizing our kids.
Mr. Hawley, thank you for your response. Mr. Kunce, if elected, what is your proposal to protect children online? You have 90 seconds.
Well, it's entirely untrue that I haven't done any of the things that he said I just did, right? I haven't protected any of these industries. In fact, for a long time, for many years, I've been calling to repeal Section 230 of the Telecommunications Act so that we can sue these companies. He jumped on late. Great. I'm glad that he did. But I'll just say one of his plans in order to police this is to force all of us to give the big tech companies our most private information, our most private documents, our birth certificates, our driver's licenses, copies of all of those things. He thinks that that's the best way to solve this problem. I don't think that that's right at all. I think we should go after these companies. I think that they're monopolists. I think that we should break them up. I mean, Facebook shouldn't own Instagram. That should have never happened. These mergers and acquisitions that country club corporate politicians like Josh Hawley have let happen over and over and over again have been absolutely detrimental to American power and the ability of individuals to come out and be able to stand up for ourselves. The reason that Section 230 exists is because politicians like Josh Hawley, who've been taking corporate PAC money and federal lobbyist money for years, put that law into place, and it's the reason that it still exists. That's why in my campaign, I take no money from corporate PACs, I take no money from federal lobbyists, and I take no money from big pharma executives or many others, because I'm tired of these people coming in and abusing us and stripping our communities for parts. From day one in this campaign, I have always said the only people I will ever owe are the everyday Missourians in my old neighborhood who took care of my family when we went bankrupt and everyone else around them like this state. Josh Hawley is the exact opposite.
So we want to talk about uniting the country. We want to address the impact of the growing political divide in the U.S. What used to be disagreement on policy has turned into personal attacks, dividing neighbors, even families. Mr. Kunce, where do you draw the line between free speech and hate speech? You have 90 seconds.
Look, I think what we've seen in our politics is an absolute degradation, and I think the reason we have that is we don't have people who are dedicated to service anymore. We have swamp creatures all throughout D.C. Josh Hawley is a swamp creature. You know, when I was working as a Subway sandwich artist down in Jeff City, Missouri, he was at the Heritage Foundation planting the seeds for Project 2025. When I graduated from school and went to my first job, I joined the United States Marine Corps. Josh Hawley's first job was at Washington, D.C.'s biggest corporate lobbying law firm. When you have a background like that, it's no wonder that you just buy into all the hate and vitriol and you do nothing but attack the other side and don't accomplish anything. Again, that's why I bring up Roy Blunt all the time, because Roy Blunt was willing to work with people from both sides of the aisle to serve Missouri, to protect Missouri, and to bring money back home. Josh Hawley refuses to do that. He only serves himself. And when you have politicians who only serve themselves and don't understand service, like I learned in the United States Marine Corps, you end up in situations where it's all about them. I mean, it's not just the hate and vitriol that he spews, but the man also spends all of his time writing self-help books, tripling his Senate salary. He has tripled his Senate salary writing self-help books about manhood while the rest of us struggle here not bringing any money home. He talks about preventing crime. Well, let me tell you something. Of that money that Roy Blunt brought home, a huge chunk of that change went to the St. Louis Police Department and other law enforcement agencies. Josh Hawley is not bringing that money home for them. He's not bringing it home for hospitals. He's not bringing it home for anything because he's more interested in dividing the country and serving himself.
Mr. Kunce, thank you so much. Mr. Hawley, same question. Where do you draw the line between free speech and hate speech? You have 90 seconds.
Well, I'll just say that I think maybe if that's my opponent's attempt to unite the country, we've got a long way to go. I'll just say this, as someone who is a First Amendment lawyer, I will defend anybody's right to express themselves clearly and reasonably. I will draw the line, though, at any attempts at violence or intimidation, which is not protected by the United States Constitution. But let me just say this. I think that, listen, Donald Trump has been nearly assassinated twice in just the last few months. Just 2 nights ago, the current president of the United States, Joe Biden, called all of Donald Trump's supporters, that would include me, garbage. That was his word. I'm sure you've seen it. He said that Trump supporters are the only garbage that he sees out there. I'll just say that that kind of rhetoric, coming on the heels of the assassination attempts on the former president, I think is not only hugely destructive, I think it's downright wrong. And I wish my opponent would condemn it. I haven't heard anything from my opponent about calling many Missourians garbage, or for that matter, about the assassination attempts on the life of President Trump. But listen, I think that it is vital that we treat our opponents with respect, that we don't call them garbage, that we don't use this kind of rhetoric that frankly has incited violence. And I'm going to continue to do my part. I hope my opponent would be willing to join me.
Well, time has flown by this evening. What's the cliche? Time flies when you're having fun,
when you're
right?
having fun.
Time
That's
for
right.
closing statements, gentlemen. Let's start with you, Mr. Kunce. You have 60 seconds for closing tonight.
Yeah, I just say to everybody out there that if you want to fundamentally change who has power in this country, if you want the right to have the right to make your own decisions, and you don't want guys like Josh Hawley deciding how you get to live in the bedroom, in the doctor's office, or anyone else, then I'm the only guy who's going to do that for you. If you want someone who's going to deliver for this state, I'm the only one who's going to do it. Josh Hawley brings back $0 every single year while the rest of us struggle. We literally struggle. He doesn't know that because he never comes here. He comes here maybe 6 times a year. That's unbelievably bad, and it's the reason why he doesn't know where to put the money and how to invest in us. I am a kid who was saved by his community in this state when my parents went bankrupt from medical bills. I've spent my entire life in service trying to pay that back in the United States Marine Corps. This race is about this state. It's about delivering for this state and everyone in it. And someone who's very important to me in that is veterans. I'm a veteran. I use the VA for my health care, and it just kills me that we have U.S. senators like Josh Hawley who lie about bringing home funding for military families, who stalled the PACT Act that gave veterans like me from Iraq and Afghanistan who were exposed to burn pits VA coverage. We need a U.S. senator from this state who's a veteran. Right now, not a single member of Congress from this state is a veteran, and it shows. It shows at the VA, it shows in our communities, and so I just ask you right now, I know a lot of you thank veterans for their service every day. I get thanked for it every day, and I appreciate that a lot. But what I would say is, please, on November 5th, don't just thank a veteran for his service. Put one in the U.S. Senate so I can finally serve you and all of us.
Thank you so much. Let's wrap up with you, Mr. Hawley. You have 60 seconds closing statement.
Thank you very much. In the last 4 years, we have been through a lot together. 15 million illegals have come across the border, crime like we've never seen before in our lifetimes, inflation that none of us can afford. And while my opponent will not tell you tonight who he's going to vote for, I think we all know whose policies he supports, Kamala Harris. So I think this election is about something very simple. Do you think we can do better? If you want to go on like we have been, if you want to double down on these failed policies that have got us here, then I think my opponent is probably your man. But if you believe that we can do better, if you believe we can bring jobs back to this country, if you believe that we can secure our border, if you believe that we can protect our children, I ask for your support. I think of a woman who I met just the other day on the campaign trail in O'Fallon, Missouri. She came up to me and said, as our rally was ending, she took my hand and she told me that she'd been diagnosed with cancer. And she said, Josh, I won't see you again, but I want to tell you how much I love this country and what a joy it is to get to stand and fight to save it. That's our mission. That's our calling. Let's do that together. Thank you, and good night.
Thank you both for taking part tonight. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate our viewers as well.
Absolutely. It is time for us to say goodbye. We appreciate you so much for being here. Thank you, gentlemen. And remember, the election day is Tuesday. Polls open at 6 a.m. and close at 7 p.m.
From the Fox 2 studios in St. Louis and all of the Next Star Nation, thank you all for joining us tonight. Have a great night.